It's now time to pay some vendors, so suppliers for both our products and services that we use in order to run our business. So the first thing we'll look at is a vendor bill where we've bought product from the vendor to sell in our shop, and the second type will be people that provide services to us for things like telephone, rent, and those types of things. So first, let's have a look at this purchase order that we've created earlier. So get out of the way, there we go. So if we look at this purchase order, we're going to purchase and orders. By default, we land on this summary page, and we can see that we've got some purchase orders in here. That this is in a status of purchase order. But in this context, for accounting purposes, it's sometimes very useful if we go over these three dots and turn on billing status. And now I can see this is waiting for a bill to be created from this purchase order. So let's just open this up. So I can see that we've ordered some products. We've got some stuff has turned up, not all of it, but that's okay. I can see in the receipts here that we've got some received goods, and that's great. So double check all that. So if I was an accountant and wanted to check that the products had arrived and they've been marked off as having been stored in our warehouse and so forth, then I think we're in a pretty good position to then pay this bill. So that way I'm not bothering anybody else. I can go and check all these things out myself. You notice I've still got the received products here, and that's because if you recall from the earlier lesson, we're still waiting on that one product to turn up. If this was delivered in full, then that button would not be there. But as it goes, let's process. We'll create a bill from this purchase order, and that puts the bill into our system, so we can check things, make sure it's all good, and then we'll confirm that order. Confirm that bill. And as always, I've forgotten to put in a date, which let's put today's date in there and save, and we'll confirm that. There we go. So that's a confirmed bill. So it's now got a bill reference number. So all that means is we've created a bill in the system. In fact, this is the first time the purchase order has anything has actually touched the accounting system, I should say. So prior to this was all those correct purchase orders, the receipt of the goods was all done outside the accounting because there's no financial transactions there. But creating a bill creates the first entry into the accounting system for this bill. What I can do from here too is go and register a payment for this, which we will do now. So we'll click on register payment, and it says, okay, where's this payment coming from? It's coming from the bank. We're doing it manually. There are other options for payment methods. We can batch them together and pay them through ABA files, if you're familiar with those, and various bits and pieces, but we'll leave that for the moment. We'll just work through this example. We've got how much we're paying. If we want to pay a less amount, we can put that in there, and then some buttons will appear here to what you want to do with the remainder. But we'll leave this fairly standard for the moment. Just trying not to confuse anybody with this. We've got the payment date and so forth. So we'll create the payment. So that registers the payment in the system. So paid. That doesn't actually transfer any money, doesn't do anything, but in the system it's registered that it's been paid. The way later on we'll talk about reconciliation, and that's where we link up that this payment came from this bank statement. But we'll talk more about that in a later lesson. So now that bill is considered paid. So we go back to the purchase order again, and we can see that I've now got the vendor bill here in the smart button, which I didn't have before. So I can go and link to. The good thing about the smart buttons is it links to all those other places in the system. Let's go and have a look at the accounting now. So what can we see with the accounting? We can see that we've got our money in the bank, and I've got $9,500 in the bank, but I've got a negative 91389 as an outstanding amount. So what this means is that I've got a bill in here for that amount of money, but it hasn't been officially taken out of the bank yet. So once I get a bank statement and upload it into the system, we'll get that reconciled later. So your true standing at this point in time will be the 9,500 minus the 913. But at the moment, the system has no evidence that that transaction's actually happened, and it's only when it's been reconciled that it'll really understand it. Likewise, down over here in our cash, we've still got some money here in the cash. So if you recall from earlier lessons, we opened the point of sale and we sold some goods. So our cash has increased there as well. We'll look at that a bit later on. This banner now is good, but we probably don't really need it anymore. So let's get rid of it just because it's taking up some space on the page, and we'll just remove that. So that makes things look a lot neater. Now, one of the things that does happen from time to time is we get bills from other people. So there's no purchase orders or anything for this. This is a bill that we've received for rent from Rogers Real Estate, and it's for $418. So we need to process this. We need to pay Rogers Real Estate for the rent of our shop. So how we do that? Let's have a look at this. So if we go into vendors and bills, so this is a vendor, they're a supplier of a good or a service. So we'll go into bills, and at the moment, the only bill I can see is the one we just created from our purchase of goods, but we're going to create a new one now. So we'll create the bill. The vendor is Rogers Real Estate. So I'll put that in. Now, Rogers Real Estate doesn't exist as a customer, as a contact in our system yet. So it's asking me, do I want to create and edit the contact? Okay, great, yep. And this is brilliant because I don't have to jump to and fro between different apps. I don't have to jump out of accounting, go into contacts, add the contacts, and come back in and add them here. I can do it all on the fly as I go along. So I can now, because I'm opening up these two together, and if the PDF will let me, the good thing about it is I can copy and paste from here and paste, and other information I want. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just demonstrating that with both these open together, I can save myself a lot of work. What I am going to do is copy this number, copy. And I'll save that contact first before I move on to the bill. So save, and now Rogers Real Estate does exist as a contact. Later on, I can go back and fill in all the rest of the details, but for now, that's enough. Bill reference. Actually, I'll copy this bill reference. I'll copy that and paste that in there. Because that's an important part. So it's not mandatory, but it does make life a lot easier when you've got that reference in there and cross-reference and so forth. But also when the system tries to work out and match when we reconcile, it'll look for those that will most likely appear in our bank statements. So the system will automatically try and look for a matching detail in there. So quite handy to do that. So whenever possible, make sure you put in the cross references. The next thing, this is for monthly rent. So let's add a line. Now we're not going to add a product because this is not a product. We don't have a product that we in our catalogue of products. So, but we do need to put a label in there. So often it will be useful to put the invoice number or other bits and pieces, but at the end of the day, it's got to be something that's somewhat intuitive as well. So let's put in that invoice number. But what I'll do at the start, I'll put in, this is for rent. So I'll put both those in that label. Labels are pretty important for reconciliation purposes as well. When we do get bank statements, it looks at the label and tries to match it on that as well as the partner, what we call the partner, the vendor or the supplier. Next thing we do, asset category. That's not really relevant here. That's really if you're buying assets and dealing with those things. So little we won't be filling that in at the moment. The account. So this is rent. So it's not really a cost of goods, but it is a office expense, I would say. So let's click on that and we'll put in office, and we'll just call it office expenses. Depending on how you want to set up your chart of accounts, you can have dedicated accounts just for rent, or however you want to do it. I'll just put it in a generic one for the moment. I'm not that fussed. The price that we've got here is the 4418. Click away, and you see it's already calculated that's our 380 plus a $38 GST. We didn't have to do anything. That's great. Awesome. So that's nearly ready to go. I will put in a bill date, which is you start to soon work out that I'm a classic for forgetting to put the bill date in. But one of the other things I like to do as well is, let me save this records. So it's in draft at the moment, so no issues there. We can still modify it and do things. What I will do is I'll attach a file in the chatter. So I do want to, where's my course? We're up to paying bills, and I've got some artifacts in there, and this is this one. Now that means that whenever I'm later on looking at this bill, I can actually see the bill itself is now attached to this record, and that's really valuable. So you know, if anybody questions about a payment or anything like that, you go, well, here's the actual PDF I got sent. So we're just about there now. I think we've filled in enough. These payment references, bill references, and things like that, optional. Again, feel free, if you've got the information, fill them in. Before I do confirm, I will just have a quick flick through on these, and we can see what's going to happen behind the scenes. So to say, the journals that are going to get affected, GST will get affected. It'll go into that account, and office expenses, that much will go in there. So this is splitting up our GST and our office, the actual payment, the expense itself, between the relevant categories and so forth. So when it comes time to pay GST through our BAS statements, we can quickly look these up. So you notice too that if you're familiar with the Australian, had the pleasure of filling in a tax return, these codes are straight out of the Australian tax codes. So, and the other information there, if that's relevant, I really come into these tabs. Usually I just put in as much information as I need to in here, and it's all good. So let's confirm this. So now that bill is registered in the system, but we haven't registered a payment yet. So let's just have a quick look at what that looks like back here. And I can see that I've got some of these bills. I'll just open this up again. Bill dates in there. I can see I've got a vendor, a bill number 2 for Rogers Real Estate. I can see how much it is. So X GST plus GST, the total and the summary, and I may choose to turn on, what do I want to know? I want to maybe payment status. What else? I think that'll do us. So by turning on payment status, it's really easy to see I've paid this bill, but I haven't paid this one yet. So let's go back into it, and I can register a payment. There is another way to register a payment too. I can go to vendors and payments, and then create a payment from here, and then I can link that up. So I'll just go through and show you what that looks like, but I really want to finish the other process. So I can register a payment and put the memo down here again is really important. Not a mandatory field, but it does help in linking up a payment to a bank statement. So I'll get out of this and go back to finish the workflow that I was looking at. Trying not to jump around too much, but there is just so many ways of doing things. It just depends on how you do it. Actually, is a personal preference. It really comes down to how you like to operate. Personally, if I'm going to put in a bill, I'm going to do everything in a sequence. I'm not going to jump out to another place and then register a payment and then come back to it. But nevertheless, if you're not going to pay that right now, you know that there is other ways you can get in there and pay it later. So let me pay this. So register a payment. It's as similar as, it's exactly the same form that we looked at earlier. It's got the right amount in there. I'm going to create a payment, and that's now marked as paid. So I've got one more bill to do. I'll do this bill without the distractions this time. So we'll create a new one. Let me get rid of this one, and we'll bring up this bill. So now we've got a bill for telephone and internet. So this is, let's create the bill now. And this is from FishLink. I'll copy. Actually, I'll move that across so we can see both, so you can see what I'm doing on both. I'll paste that in there because I'm lazy, and that's a good way to type. That contact doesn't exist again, so I'm going to put that in there, and I'm just going to leave this empty for now. And time permitting, I'll come back and fill in all the rest of the details later. But right now, I just need to get this bill in here. Now, one of the things that I haven't probably mentioned yet on creating a bill is that I'm assuming that we're paying this bill through a BPay or something similar, or a direct deposit or something along those sort of lines. So I'm skimming over that at the moment, but this is really just about how do I get the bills into the system. So let me keep going. I'll save this contact. So bill date I'm going to do, because I always forget it, and I'll add a line, and this is, there's no product again, this is for a service. So I'm going to say phone and internet. I am going to copy this and paste in here, and I'm going to also paste in here. Now this is a telephone, and I know I've got an account especially for telephone. So before in the last example, I just went with office expenses, but I know I've actually got a dedicated account, so I'm keeping track of my telephone bills separately. So that's great, that's done. The price is 129.03. Click away, and then so that's paying that much GST. The untaxed amount is that much. So it does all that calculation for me. I don't need to do any of that. And so that's pretty much good to go now. So we've got, that's kind of the minimum. One of the other, I'll keep going. So I'll come back to an auto-complete feature later on when we've got a purchase order that we want to link up with the bill. So I'll confirm this, and we'll register. As I said, this is the standard workflow. Register a payment. So I'm probably off in another tab, paying it right now. Come back, confirm the payment, and it's paid. And that is now done. So let's have a look at what we've got here. We now summary. Get rid of that one. Let's bring that one across. I can see the status is posted. The payment status is they're all paid. Great. everything's ready to go. There's no more work to do there. I've just got to now wait for the bank statements to come in, and we can reconcile these later on. So let's have a look at the overview now. So the overview shows that no cash has changed, moved at all, so it's just still remaining the same, but our balance in our general ledger is still at $9,500 we originally put in. We've still got some outstanding payments or receipts, and the total of those is $1,460.92. But this is a combination of two things. It's the bills that we paid. It's the invoices that we've sent out that we're waiting on payment for. That's an asset that we're waiting to be to recover that money, and it'll be that money minus that money, the bills that we've got going out. So this number here is a combination of that money minus that money will give us that money. At the moment, we've got no customer invoices, so it's just a minus 1460 here. I think for this lesson, that's where I'll leave that, and then we'll come back later on and upload a bank statement and see how to reconcile.